Hi, everyone who's slowly joining in. We'll go ahead and give everyone a little bit of time. We'll get started around 3 after, once everyone's had a chance to join the webinar. Welcome everyone who's joined so far. We'll go ahead and get started around 3 after. We're giving everybody an opportunity to join the webinar. All right. I think it's good for us to go ahead and get started. First, welcome everyone to our latest feature review webinar. We've got a couple things that we'll run through, some welcome and introductions, some announcements, and then we'll jump into some of the features. My name is Ben Ober, and I'm a customer success manager here at QbDVision. I'll be your moderator for today's session. I also have the honor of introducing two of my colleagues, and they'll be our presenters for today, Luke Guerrero and Natalie Kwan. But before we get started, I've got a few housekeeping items here. All participants will remain muted throughout the entire webinar today. Please take advantage of the Q&A section. It's on your Zoom toolbar. Feel free to ask questions as we go. We will be answering all questions at the end of the session, so we'll go back there and refer to those, and we'll go through each one. We'll also be sharing the recording, the deck, and the Q&A responses after this webinar. Everybody should get a link to that afterwards. Next, we have a couple announcements before I hand it over to Luke and Natalie to review some of our features for today. First, the customer success team is very thrilled and excited to announce that we've launched our office hours. You've probably heard this from Jean Marie and I over the past couple of weeks. But this is an opportunity for you and any of your users to get some feature related questions answered, ask about any best practices, as well as we can demo some of the features if you'd like some one-on-one time with us. And then the team is also available for these calls for office hours the first and third Tuesdays of each month. We've got a couple different time options to help accommodate folks in different time zones. And anyone who has a QbD login will be able to schedule time for these office hours. And then Next, we're very happy to announce our updated Knowledge Hub. The Knowledge Hub, which we've formerly referred to as Confluence, includes various help articles, videos, and FAQs on everything from risk management plans to tech transfer. This is an area where we've been investing a lot of time and effort into making sure that this is updated and, has relevant FAQs, videos, and documentation on a lot of the features that we have within QbDVision. So this is something that we're very excited, to be able to announce that we've made available. So with that, I think I'll hand it over to Luke.
Okay, thanks, Ben, and welcome everybody. So next up on the announcements list, some of you may have seen this already, but one of the things that we did during this release period is we introduced a product portal. So we're very excited to share this. It's private to customers. You can see a link here and that will be available after the deck. We did send out this in an email to all the core team members, but for those of you who are joining the call that maybe didn't get to see this because you're not on the core team, we are excited to announce this. So one of the things we wanted to do was share a little bit more about what's on our roadmap. So for many of you customers, we will get in touch with Natalie and I. We'll do a roadmap meeting. We'll learn from you guys. But one of the pieces of feedback that we heard is people want to see what other people are requesting. And that's what the product portal is all about, to show some of the items that are being considered on a roadmap and have an opportunity for you to weigh in on that. So I'm going to show you this real quick. Just to see, you can see what it's looked like. So it's available at qbdvision.com/QbDVision product portal. It is password protected at the moment. It's a pretty simple password together, but for now it's password protected. We may change that in the future. But what you can see here is it's a web page, but inside the web page, you can see here we have a widget, and under that widget we can see 3 different tabs, and these tabs and pieces in here will change and move as we go. You can see a broader list of all the things that we're considering. So here's a bunch of features that we're considering: intermediate materials, sampling plans, the component library. On each of these, you can see a little icon here that tells you how many people have already voted on that feature. So for each of these features, you have the opportunity to come in, click on the card, and tell us more about it. Like, is this not important to you? Is this critical to you? Each of these votes, when you click them, will prompt you to provide more feedback and an email address. And the most important thing to know is if you just click critical, it's not going to submit. You actually have to provide a comment and an email address. That then comes up into us. It registers. We use this information to sort of log and keep track of all the different aspects. In many of the cards, you'll see prompts by us. Maybe we have questions about specific features. Maybe we want to know how you might leverage them. So certainly this doesn't take away the opportunity to meet with us one-on-one, to talk about our roadmap, to talk about what's important for you. This isn't replacing that by any means, but this is a platform that we're using to be able to show you some of the stuff that we're considering, to be able to have other team members comment on them. Now, a couple of important things to know about the product portal. One, you cannot see comments from other companies. I'm sorry, but it's private. So any comment that you make, you also can't see comments from other colleagues as well. So it is locked down, or there is some privacy behind it. So you will be able to see the number of people engaging with these. And as you can see from the screen here, some folks have already, but the comments are private. You can always ask us if you want to, have a more detailed conversation of what other team members have asked for. But just so you know, the information is private and we review it ourselves. The second thing to know about the product portal is you still are going to request features via the old way. So you can do that via our support system or through a direct conversation. And if we have a conversation with you and you tell us, for example, that you're really interested in component library, we're actually going to log that in here for you. Now, again, you won't be able to see that, but we're tracking all that information in this source. So that information will already be tagged here. So we use this system ourselves. So it's not just for you guys voting, but it's also when we have those conversations with you. The third thing to know is not every feature that you request will be on here. We do get a lot of requests for not necessarily little things, but smaller items. As you can see on here already, we have a fair amount of items in here. We're going to continue to add, but there is a point of overwhelming. We have over, I think we're close to 2,000 feature requests across various things of all different sizes. So we're trying to group them and categorize them in ways that are a little bit simpler to understand. So some of the items that you request may show up as their own card here. They may show up under an existing card, or they may not make it on here. That doesn't mean we're not considering it. It's just that we're not tracking it through here for feedback. So think of this as a summary of some of the bigger picture items that we're thinking about, but it doesn't mean that you can't request more individualized things that are important to you. We still want to hear that feedback. And we still want to meet with you live always to talk about this. And any sort of stuff that you engage in here, the more detail you add, the better. And you could probably expect that we're going to ask for a phone call or an opportunity to talk about it in more detail. So that's the portal. As I mentioned, it is password protected. Check it out today, vote on things, that's great, but it's there for your perusing. We're really excited to share that. The next thing, and you'll see us, because we just announced this, the next thing that we've done from an announcement perspective is in this release, not only do we launch the portal, not only office hours, but we spent a considerable amount of time going after a new certification, which is SOC 2 Type 2. Now, most of you guys on this call aren't security gurus, so just know that that's another industry standard that we're chasing. Security and compliance is critical for us. So obviously most of you on the call are interested in the features that we're developing, but it's also important that we consider how we protect your data. And that means a lot to us, in addition to the quality elements that come into our system, because we are pharmaceutical only, and we know there are strong concerns in here. One of the cool things that we've done with our SOC 2 compliance, all of you guys know what it's like to be compliant to standards. You guys have your own requirements and regulatory components. With our SOC 2 compliance, we chose to use a new tool called Vanta. You don't need to know anything about it, but the thing that's really cool for us is it's continuously monitoring it. So it's connected to all of our servers, all of our security pieces. So not only are we compliant the day that we got the certification, but we continually monitor that. So the second anything falls out of compliance, you see it. And we have a new trust page where you can actually come in here, or your IT teams can come in here and look at all of the controls that are in the SOC 2 guidelines and how we're adhering to them. And if we miss the mark on one, if something happens, it will show up there. Not only will we get alerted, but you'll have the ability to see that. So increased transparency is what we're all about, which kind of goes into our overall security posture, security, compliance, privacy, reliability. Those are big aspects of what we do. It's not always visible to you guys. So for example, in the last release under the reliability piece, we did do some performance work. We got a ton queued up for this. You don't always see that in the feature area, but it's part of the work that we're doing to overall improve the quality, the overall quality of the tools and services that we provide to you. So not that exciting unless you're in security, but really important to us. And we hope you guys appreciate the benefits of us really striving hard to protect your data and your privacy. The last announcement for us is the Digital CMC Summit. Woohoo! Some of you came last year. For those of you that didn't, we really recommend as an opportunity to come join us. This will be a week starting in Halloween in October, start in November, in Austin, Texas. So last year we hosted our first annual summit. We're doing it again this year. And the Digital CMC Summit is not just about QbDVision. This is an opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about how do we digitize the entire CMC ecosystem? How do we get therapies to patients faster? How do we accomplish that? How do we work together? So last year we heard a lot of great feedback. We heard a lot of great talks. Customers like you gave talks and showed other folks how you're using it, where you had challenges. So there's an opportunity for live sessions. There's also an opportunity for independent networking. One thing that we're going to be featuring this year as well is from last year, we've got a lot more of other ecosystem partners that are coming through. We've worked on some integrations between them, but we're really thinking hard about how do we connect the digital CMC ecosystem, because it's not just about QbDVision. It's about all of us coming together. It's about how do we structure our processes? How do we structure our systems? How do we structure our data? What are the best practices? So all sorts of interesting conversations, from taxonomy, which was a big topic last year, to systems integration, to the role of AI. So we've got a really excited event planned for you. You've probably seen some of our marketing coming out. It's going to get hotter and heavier as we start to make that push. And your CS teams will probably be reaching out, because we definitely want at least one person from every company to come and join some others and really help us move the industry forward. So October 31st, mark your calendars and be there or be square. Okay, so now Natalie and I are going to show you some of the capabilities that we've added in this. So this release, internally named K-pop, is a follow-up from our last release. Jazz was a super feature-packed release. We released it in February. We introduced brand new components like Doc Builder, which has been amazing in terms of its adoption rate. Almost every client we have is using it, submitting feature requests, really challenging it. And we also introduced the library concept, which we're really starting to see take off right now. So in this release, you're going to see a couple new features, a couple of new capabilities, some security stuff, but also a lot of improvements to some of those features. So anytime we add a new capability, the subsequent weeks we're usually tweaking and tuning that based on usage as it gets out there in the wild, as people start to explore the possibilities and start to request new things. So you'll see that, and even continuing on into the next release, the uptick and sort of the adoption of some of these new tools that we introduce is really kind of giving us some new fuel to the fire to add into what we can deliver to the market. So before I go into some features, of course, just a reminder for us, for you, why we do what we do here. So our goal, what gets us out of bed in the morning, is thinking about how to get therapies to patients faster. So when we think about the digital CMC Summit that I mentioned earlier, we think about the software we do. It's really, how do we all work together? Even that's our password. Like, how do we come together to work with industry sponsors, with consultants, with other vendors in the ecosystem? We want to get everyone on the same page so that way we can achieve our mission of digitizing the CMC ecosystem, but ultimately to get with the goal of getting therapies to patients faster. So with that, let's get into some of the features. So the first and probably biggest area for this release in terms of new capabilities is we've improved our risk assessment rules. So QbDVision has QBD in its name, ICH Q8, which has at its heart in Q9 risk management. And risk management is embedded into our platform. One of the things that makes us different in the market is we've thought about risk from the beginning. It's a prioritization tool. It's an understanding of knowledge. The goal of any pharmaceutical development program is to convert risk into knowledge. So you can't have a knowledge management platform without understanding risk. And the goal, as you're doing all these studies, is taking that risk and turning it into knowledge, which is going to be captured in our system. So risk is a core part of our system. That said, some of our more advanced customers, some of the folks that were doing more advanced risk assessments, have made a bunch of feature requests in this area. There's still more that we want to do here, but we've added some new capabilities to help deal with some new, not necessarily edge cases, but some more advanced features that happen in risk. So rather than tell you, I'm going to show you. But the first thing I want to call attention to is that because the risk stuff it's not necessarily complicated, but there's a lot to it. As Ben pointed out, we have the Knowledge Hub, and you'll see here we've added a ton of details. So everything I'm going to talk about today, potential labeling, is documented in here. We've got the rules laid out in here, important things to know, tricks and tips, even flow diagrams for how it all comes together. I'll show you this now live, but what we encourage you to do is to come in here and explore. And if we're missing something in here, we definitely want to know. We'll add it. But one of the things we're continuing to do is invest in our documentation. We've heard that feedback from you guys loud and clear, and we want to always make sure that we're updating this to keep you informed and let you know how to work with our system. So the first thing that we added on the risk rules is the concept of potential. PCQAs, potential CQAs, that is a concept that's pretty common in early stage development. Here I'm looking at a risk management plan. Risk management plans, as a reminder, are updated up here. They're part of every project, so every project has a risk management plan. In the last release, we added the capability to be able to modify a risk management plan. So now you can change your risk management plan and turn these rules on and off. But the thing I'll show you is that in all existing risk management plans, all the rules that we've talked about, potential and rules-based criticality, which I'm going to walk you through, they're off by default. So everything I'm about to show you is not on your project unless you turn it on. So if you want to take advantage of any of these features, you need to enable it in your project. You need to propose the RMP and get it effective, and then update your project. So that's something we added in Jazz to be able to modify it. But by default, these are not opted in. If you were to create a new risk management plan tomorrow, you would see these labels turned on by default, but you can always turn them off if they're not appropriate for you. So let's talk about potential. Potential is a concept that's fairly common. So a potential CQA, a potential process parameter. When you have an impact to patient or to product that's not necessarily well known, So for example, let's say you have a critical quality attribute and you don't yet know if it impacts patient safety and efficacy. The way that that's represented today in our schema is through uncertainty. So you may say, you know what, we think this impact is high, but we have no prior knowledge here. It's limited. Maybe we've got a couple literature reviews. We've got none of our own studies. We don't know. What you would do, as you can see here, is there's a new potential label, is you will flag the level in your uncertainty schema that matches to potential. And when this flag is hit, we're going to actually reclassify your attribute to be a potential CQA. And you can see here, we provide a label. We default it to PCQA because that's commonly used in most case studies and literature, but you can write whatever you want here. You can modify that. So the way to turn this on is you basically flag the levels of your uncertainty schema that require potential. So let's see what that looks like in an RMP, or sorry, in the product. So I'm going to come over here. This is our gene therapy project. It's based on the Nimble case study. So here you can see I've got a quality attribute for capsid protein purity, and you can see the label is PCQA. And what you can see here on that here, you can see that I have a high impact, a 7, but I have also a high uncertainty. So I have no prior knowledge or limited prior knowledge. I have some scientific studies, but I don't actually know this is for sure. So normally with these two values, this would result as critical. But with this rule enable, you can see it's been reclassed to potentially critical. And you can see that here, and you can see that the uncertainty score is overriding it to this value. So now we're switching the risk. So no longer is this critical, but it's potentially critical. And the goal here is to minimize or better flag those that are known to be critical and those that are potential. And what you'll be doing throughout your development process is further characterizing this, understanding the impact, and eventually when you go to BLA submission, this will be a CQA or not a CQA, but maybe at IND, this might be classified as potential CQA. So you're not necessarily registering it as a CQA just yet, but because you don't know its impact, but you're flagging it as potential because you think it might be there. So this is common. You see this in a lot of case studies, especially like I said, for early development when the impact is not necessarily known. You can see the same thing as well on our process section. So I'm going to come over here to the downstream process in my lysis operation. Let's say impeller speed is the same thing. You can see here it's classified as a CPP. Maybe we don't know the impact of impeller speed yet on this. So you can see here we've got an impact to host cell protein, but our uncertainty is high, so which is 5. In this RMP for product 5 is no prior data or experience. So here you think there's a high impact, but you're actually not sure. Your certainty is low. So maybe you're going to follow up and do a DOE, further study this. As that comes down, this will flip into a CPP or not, but this flags it as a potential CPP or PCPP as it's labeled in the RMP. And this, again, is another flag that, hey, this needs to be further investigated, but it's not being marked as critical because we don't yet know if it's critical. So that's potential. Hopefully very straightforward. And again, there's more documentation available in the portal. The next piece is our rules-based criticality. And rules-based criticality includes 2 things. It includes a key labeling system and a criticality requirement. So there's 2 sort of features in this one option. And again, this is detailed. But here, what you're doing, the first one is this concept of a key label. So for process parameter, just like before, we now have a new label here for a key label, so key KPP. And just to step back a bit, again, another example that we see in a lot of case studies is that a key parameter versus a critical parameter is something that doesn't affect the patient, but maybe affects performance of the product. So for example, if you have, and I'll show you here, let's say I have temperature, and at this stage, and this is a hypothetical situation, but I know temperature has a high impact on yield. But yield has no necessarily direct impact on patient safety or efficacy. What this temperature parameter is being classed as you can now see it's a KPP, a key process parameter. So it's not critical because it doesn't have an impact on patient safety or efficacy. It may in the end for this specific piece here, but there are many product variables or process variables or parameters that maybe affect a performance attribute. And previously they were classed as critical, but that wasn't necessarily fair because they didn't have that impact on patient safety or efficacy. So you can see here, the way this works is yield is set up as a final performance attribute in my project here. So because this is linked to this to yield and yield only, It's got a critical linking, but it's being overridden to that KPP label from the RMP because it's not actually directly impacting patient safety or efficacy. The second thing in rules-based criticality is the concept of a requirement for the excuse me, clear that tooltip for a linkage to a CQA. So one of the things that we've seen heard from a lot of our customers is it is not appropriate, if you will, to have a process parameter be critical if it doesn't have an impact on a CQA. So in this example, time has an impact on unpackaged DNA, which is not critical in this project. And you could see now we're showing the actual criticality here of what you're linking to. So previously, this would result in time being a CPP. But what we've heard and what we've seen is that's not appropriate because it's not a critical process parameter because there is no impact on a CQA. So here in this example, what you'll see is we've reclassed this. So this actually drops down to non-critical, which in my RMP is one less. If I come to the criticality schema, it's the level below criticality. So this is a 3-dimensional RMP. If you had a 5-dimensional, it would be whatever the next level below that is. But here, this rule basically forces things to be linked to a CQA. So if unpackaged DNA becomes critical, this will flip over to become a CQA or CPP, excuse me. But because today it's not critical, it's downgraded and it's overridden to be non-critical. And this is something that we've heard that a lot of people will do manually, that a lot of teams will come back through and check these, and then they'll modify their risk score accordingly, saying, hey, you know what, this is not correct, and then they'll then hack it. But this allows you to basically, or forces that assessment to always match that, allows you to keep the same impact or uncertainty, but it just classifies it differently based on the final resulting link. Okay, that's it. The last thing I'll call to your attention is that these all have to work together. It's usually not the scenario that there's one risk link on any piece. So you can see here, I've got a few different setup here. So there's multiple rules that can be happening or firing at the same time. And there are rules on which one wins. Obviously, critical is always going to be non-critical, and it's going to be potentially critical. But if you had a KPP and a CPP at the same time, CPP is going to win. So we do have that documented in here on how they all work together with each other and who wins in which scenario. So as you sort of build more complexity into your risk rules, they all come together and work in harmony. So really excited about these changes. There's more coming in the risk space. We've got more things to do, but we're excited for you guys to turn these on in your projects and check them out. And we hope you enjoy them. Let us know, give feedback to them. And if you're not already using the not assessed scoring in your risk management plan, at a minimum, we highly recommend that you turn that on. We had a lot of customers opt into that this last release. We found it to be very effective, and we highly encourage you guys to be using that. And then obviously, if you have more questions about how these work, please check out our Confluence pages. And if you have feedback, let us know. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie, who's going to take us through some of the other features in the release.
All right, thank you, Luke, for that overview and smarter risk rules. So now I'll continue by presenting the other exciting features that were released, starting with Doc Builder. So in this release, we continue to add capabilities to improve Doc Builder. As a quick review, Doc Builder is our powerful tool for drafting documents within QbDVision. Doc Builder ties together all the information and data stored within your projects and puts it into documents. So this is done leveraging smart content and widgets. The best part about Doc Builder is that when information is referenced using smart content, it will automatically update to reflect the changes that users make to records. So this saves you time from having to manually make these updates while also reducing the margin for error. So one way that we enhanced Doc Builder in this release was by expanding smart content to include product-related and risk-related data, whereas previously we only had process-related data available. So now users can reference information from final quality attribute and final performance attribute records, as well as information in the control method module. So along with this, we also added smart content filters in order for users to better customize the data populated using repeater and table widgets. So some of the filters that we added are using text-based criteria or filtering based on risk labels. So lastly, we continue to add formatting capabilities, such as the ability to specify page breaks, change font sizes, and edit table cells and colors, just to name a few. So we're really excited to see how users continue to use Doc Builder to create and customize their documents. While there's always the flexibility to build these custom documents starting from a blank or not using a template, we've also been working on adding more templates to give users a starting point and structure for commonly used documents. So the next template that we added in this release was the Critical Quality Attribute Assessment Template. Sometimes we also call this as the CQA Assessment Template or CQAA template. So we added this template in order to help users save time in creating the documentation required to outline their control strategy framework for pre-IND and early stage lifecycle phases. So I'm going to show you how to access the template and what it looks like. So here I am in one of my projects, just in the project dashboard. I'm going to go to documents. So basically you start to access Doc Builder by loading your project-based documents. You'll add a new document. And then you'll fill in the appropriate information, and you'll have this button over here that says Drafting QbDVision. And this indicates that you want to use your source document and you want to write it within the platform as compared to uploading a PDF for your source document. Right, and then when I click this from a new document, then you'll have the option to click either starting from blank document or picking one of the templates. And now you'll see that we have the CQA assessment template. So what does this look like once it's populated? Let me jump over here. So now you can see all the information that it has. So this will populate. The best part about this is that it will be automatically tailored based on the RMP type that you're using for this project. So the CQAA template the CQAA assessment report will actually slightly differ if you're using a risk ranking risk management plan or if you're using preliminary hazard assessment risk management plan, but you don't have to worry about customizing accordingly. We do that in the background. So here you can see all the different sections it has and all the information that it has. So similar to any formal report, you're just outlining, the purpose and the scope, walking through your references, outlining your definitions, and then you have some summary tables here. And you can see how we applied the expanded smart content for product and risk related information to populate these tables. All right, and this is a template, so it's a starting point. So the best part is that you can go in and customize it for what your company requirements are. And when you press edit, you can see where all the smart content lies. And you can go ahead and edit that. You could build new tables. You can add more columns. So any customization that you want to add in order to add that information. Okay. So next, I'm going to hop over to the material library and the changes that we made accordingly in this release. Right, so the first update that we made was to actually increase the controls related to library material records. So now administrators and super users have more privileges than standard users in creating, editing, and approving these records. So the reason why we did this was because administrators and super users have access to all projects. And that's important since the library records can be pulled in and referenced to any project material. So we want to have more control at that level. We also updated the workflow for linking specifications to material attributes. So just as a review, specifications are the raw material characteristics that are intrinsic to a material and defined by a supplier. So typically suppliers will detail these specification criteria and ranges in the certificates of analyses. So with the library, now material lots and certificate of analyses will be added to each library material record instead of being added at a project level. So while the specifications are defined by the suppliers and uploaded at the library, the complementary part to that is that material attributes are separate records that exist at the project level. So we've refined our definition of material attributes so that the acceptance criteria are now defined by your product and process requirements. So even though this information differs between specifications and material attributes, it's really important for users to understand how the acceptance criteria fit within the limits of the specifications of the raw material. So this will give you a better understanding of kind of where the higher risk materials are, if you're using the appropriate materials, and also it will help to make any changes necessary if the suppliers change anything with the materials, and if you have to update that accordingly. So because of this, we added a feature where users can compare this data once material attributes and specifications are linked. So let me show you what that looks like. So here I just have a standard project pulled up. I have a material that has been synced with the library material. And then now what you can see is in the related panel, you usually are able to see any related material attributes. But we have this linking icon now, which shows if this material attribute is linked to a specification that sits within the library material record. And then we have this view as well, where you can compare your material attributes to the library material specifications. So when I pull this up, you'll be able to see a table that will compare and analyze the data for you. So let me see. Here, you'll have, one moment. Okay, perfect. So in this table now, you have a comparison of the data, and you can see, okay, how do my material attributes fit within the supplier specifications, or sorry, the supplier specification ranges. You can compare if it's the same measure type, how the targets fit with each other, and how the units match with each other. And you want to try to keep these consistent because this will help when you're understanding the differences between the two. So you can see with the pH here that we actually have a yellow warning and a flag. And so this is part of the data analysis that we're doing, in that it will flag it if there's inconsistent information, which makes it easier for users to see and highlight like where changes might need to be made. So in this case, you have the target pH, right, sits above the target pH here is 8, and that sits above the upper limit of the material supplied. So this material is not appropriate for you to use, or there was a data transcription error in entering in this information. So either way, you get a visual flag, which helps it stand out. Below this table as well, you can see if there are any other library specifications that haven't been linked, or if there are any other material attributes that haven't been linked. And then you can walk through the steps to link them. It's important to note that the material attributes can only be linked to library specifications. They will not automatically be synced. And the reason is because there are typically a lot more characteristics that a supplier defines when they're giving you a COA. Whereas there's only some of those characteristics are important regarding the process and product requirements that apply for your own product. So we just want to make sure that you can pick and choose and have that flexibility to link them. All right, so moving on now to the next area is that we've increased our security in this release. And we did this by adding multi-factor authentication as an optional feature for logging in, and then also adding virus scanning for any uploaded documents, any source documents, or any like external PDFs that you're uploading and linking will now be virus scanned before being added. So for MFA, I'm going to walk you through how to set it up. Again, I just want to highlight that this feature is completely optional and it works on a company-wide basis. So if you're interested in enabling multi-factor authentication for your company, you should reach out to an account administrator. An account administrator will need to reach out to their customer success contact, or can file a ticket, and then we'll turn it on for the company accordingly. So once enabled, here we have how to set it up in the Knowledge Hub, but I'll walk you through it, and then you can always reference this page to walk you through the detailed steps below. So in order to set it up, you'll first need to download an Authenticator app on your cell phone. You have flexibility in picking which one that you want. However, we do recommend Google Authenticator. So you'll open your QbDVision account, and the next time that you log in, you'll see this setup prompt. You'll have a QR code to scan through your Authenticator app, and that should configure the multi-factor authentication to your QbDVision account. So once you set this up, you'll want to log out or refresh the page of your QbDVision account. And then on your next login, you'll be prompted to enter in the verification code. And this verification code will be sent through your Authenticator app. You'll enter that in and you'll log in as normal. All right, so the next item to highlight is we just have other great kind of smaller updates. They're not major features to announce. So some of the other ones I want to highlight was that we've improved our training management by adding an overdue training alert. So now when a user is overdue on any assigned training, a notification will appear in your alert section on your homepage dashboard when you're logged in. Additionally, the user's manager, training coordinators, users in the quality department and users in the management department will receive this alert as well. So our goal with this feature was to help keep users up to date on training and keep the companies in compliance. So another few updates that we made were related to the process flow map. So one of these updates is that we made the filters and settings sticky when viewing your process flow map. And what this means is that you just don't have to reset the filters and the filters in the view that you want every time you open process flow map again. So this just helps you save a little bit of time, save some clicks when you're jumping in and out of windows, jumping in and out of the software. All right, the other thing with the process flow map is that now when you click the critical only filter view, you'll see any related materials or any process components that are connected to material attributes or process parameters that are ranked as critical. So you just get a little bit more information to see what's important when viewing those critical parameters and attributes. All right, one of the last updates I want to highlight is that we increased our flexibility with IQA linking when building risk relationships. So you can now link unit operation IQAs to downstream step IQAs. Previously, you could only link step ones to other step IQAs, but now just opening this up allows users to accurately create the risk relationships in chronological order. And this is because the unit operations represent the IQA kind of at the more global level and is usually at the end of all the steps. So in conclusion, I just want to say that we added a ton of great features in this release. We refined a lot of the features that we have, and we're really excited for you to use them. We love when you share your feedback with us, definitely let us know what you think. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ben for the Q&A part of this webinar.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks, Luke, for covering that. So yeah, now we've got the Q&A section. So let me go ahead and open that up and we'll start going through some of the questions we have. So the first question I have is, can anyone from my team submit feature requests through the new product portal?
I'll take this one.
Luke?
Yeah. So the product portal has a link to submit feature requests, but it is still through our existing support system, which is we call internally QES. So you'll see a link there, and anyone can submit. We will definitely ask questions, based on who is submitting, and we'll certainly talk to the core team on the overall importance of that relative to your organization. but the goal is for anyone to be able to submit, but it's not through the new QbDVision product portal. It's back in our old system. And as I mentioned, there is a link there, but we welcome feedback from any and all participants.
Awesome, thank you. Next one, let's see, before I get into some of the materials or feature specific ones. First off, thanks for covering this. Great work. When will this release be live? Luke, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, this is live already. So for those of you in our extended release environment, this went live at the beginning of the month. For those of you in our standard release environment, yeah, some of these went live earlier. These are rolling. So everything we've talked about today is live regardless of the environment you're in. For those of you in our standard release environment, you've already started to see some features rolling in for our next release. But yeah, it's all, everything we showed you today is available.
Great, thanks. Next one, regarding risk, can I apply these risk rules to an existing project?
I'll take that one too. Yes, you can. I mentioned this when I went through it, but in the last release in Jazz, we modified how risk management plans work, and now they're mutable. So now you can edit them. So to take an existing project, what you would need to do is a two-step process. One, you need to enable it in your new risk management plan. So you edit that risk management plan, you enable it as I showed you on the demo, and then you will approve that. After a risk management plan is approved, it's not automatically applied to a project, but the next time you enter a project, you'll see a new warning bar or notification bar saying, hey, the new update is available. You'll then opt in to that update. And what we'll do is we'll go through and it takes about 30 seconds, but there's a reclassification that's done. So any changes to the RMP now are then reapplied to all your records. So if a record, for example, is going to be potential or whatever, if it's going to change based on that new risk scoring, you'll see an actual edit in the record itself. The system will go through and basically do a bulk update to all of your records to make it match that new schema. And there's a few options available in that process, so you can pick how things transfer over. So there's a couple of nice features in there, but you can apply it to existing projects. But as I mentioned, it's not by default. So any existing project does not inherit those rules that I showed. So you have to opt in, and that's the way our model works.
Great. The next one is what happens to a linked material attribute when the specification or library material is archived?
Hi, so I'll take that one. Thank you for that question. So if the library material that has the specification is archived or the specification is removed, any linked material attribute will automatically be unlinked. So you don't have to worry about managing those relationships. That will happen, and both the proposer of the archive and also the approver of the archive will be notified that those are the downstream actions of what happens when you actually couldn't approve the archive request.
All right, next question related to multi-factor authentication. How do I reset my MFA?
Yep, I'll take that one as well. So for MFA, if you're having any issues and need to reset it, you'll contact your company administrator. From their role, that they can contact us and have their MFA reset. Again, because this is on a company-wide basis, once they reset it, you'll just be prompted to reconfigure MFA again. So you'll go through the steps that I walked through earlier.
Okay, and it looks like the last question related to the customer success office hours. Is there a process to sign up for these? It would be helpful to share with my team. I think we'll have links in this deck provided. And if not, you can go to our Knowledge Hub, which that link should be shared. If not, we can send that after this call as well. And we've got a specific page that details, kind of the hours and opportunities and when those will be available. So we'll make sure that we get that over to everyone after this webinar. All right, and I think that's it for questions. So if there's nothing else, one of the last things that we want to take time to note is supporting our users for QbDVision and its use is always a top focus for us here. If you do have any questions, feedback, or like additional information, you could always reach out to your CSM, email our support team, as well as enter a question to our support portal. Finally, we are very excited to share some news that many of you got a sneak peek at last week. We're actively making updates to our current Knowledge Hub, as I mentioned before. So this is something that's going to be updated on a regular basis going forward. So always make sure to take a look there for any latest updates. And with that, we'd like to say thank you for your time today. And, as a final reminder, we wanted to, just one final plug for the second annual Digital CMC Summit here. So yeah, thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.